Right, quick disclaimer before we begin. This is the brand new 7th generation BMW 3 Series. Disclaimer, why? Well, I'm not entirely sure I can be completely objective about this car. See, I've owned an E30 3 Series from the late 80s, I've had an E36 from the 90s, and I've had the previous generation F30 from the 2000s. So I might be a little bit emotionally involved with these machines. Now this, the 7th generation, it's bigger, it's more brawny, it's muscular. BMW says they have gone back to its roots. This goes back to being the ultimate sports sedan. And that's why I'm in Portugal. I want to find out if this 3 Series can go back to its roots and be the best sports sedan out there. Even in this day and age of SUVs, the 3 Series is the mainstay of the BMW brand. They say this is their heartbeat. Right, before we drive the car, a little bit about the styling. You've seen it from the front, it looks much beefier, much chunkier, much more muscular, a little bit like the new 5 Series even from the front. Along the side, in profile and around the back, looks much more svelte, much cleaner looking. You can see the Hofmeister kink right here. The wheel arches are a little bit more pronounced. This particular car, the 330i M Sport, is sitting on 19-inch rims and it looks really hunkered down, really muscular. This particular car is in Portimao blue. Now remember the word Portimao because we'll get to that in a bit. Now, new 3 Series is a lot bigger. 40 mm extra, or 41 mm to be exact, wheelbase, 76 mm in length and 16 mm in width. So it is a nicer place to be inside the cabin, and it is absolutely beautiful in here. Every single thing that you would touch, the quality of the materials are fantastic, and it looks much more minimalistic, much more modern, and certainly a step up from the previous generation. Currently, I'm sitting facing two massive screens, a digital instrument cluster and a big massive infotainment screen, the iDrive screen on top of the center console. Now traditionally, typically, these cars have had big massive analog gauges for the last 40 years. So traditionalists may not be very happy with that digital instrument cluster, but actually I think it works really well. I love the two big analog gauges, but these particular gauges, the digital screen with the speedo on the left and the tach on the right, works really well when you're out there on the road because it frees up the space in the middle for a lot more information. So you can have navigation up there, you've got a much bigger head-up display over there, and you've got BMW's infotainment system, and it's got a couple of tricks up its sleeve. So, hey BMW, I'm bored.
I can't imagine that. Maybe you haven't yet had the chance to try sport mode.
Voila. So we've got sport mode. I'm sitting in the driver's seat. I really am itching to get out there. Right, so we are finally on the road. We're in the hills in the Algarve region of Portugal. And as I said, we're in the 330i in the M Sport. So not only does this have the more aggressive body kit, but this also has the M Sport suspension. We're sitting on 19-inch wheels, so low profile, lots and lots of grip. So this car may have become bigger and more comfortable, but it's also 55 kilos lighter than the previous generation. Two engines which will come to India in the middle of next year. One is the 320D with the 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that produces just under 190 horsepower and 400 Nm of torque. This one has the 2-liter turbocharged petrol engine that produces 255 horsepower and 400 Nm of torque. So I started out earlier in the 320D, and admittedly I was a little bit underwhelmed. See, BMW has been building up this car saying that it is their ultimate sports sedan. It is the best 3 Series ever. It's the 3 Series that gets back to its roots of being the ultimate sports sedan. Now, the 320D that I drove earlier today was extremely refined, extremely smooth. I challenge anybody to sit in the driver's seat and tell me that there's a diesel engine in the front of that car. all cars have as standard specification what they call acoustic windshields. So it's a windshield that insulates you from the outside world. The cars that we're driving have the option of acoustic side windows as well. Even more insulation, even more refinement, even lower NVH. And the 320D that we drove earlier today felt extremely grown up, extremely mature. The reason I was underwhelmed is because the previous generation 2-liter turbocharged diesel engine would have a little bit of lag, and then the turbo would spool up and it would give you a shove in the back. So there would be this surge of power. It would that acceleration that you got after the turbo kicked in would throw you back in the seat a little bit, and it would add a little bit of excitement, a little bit of drama. This time around, BMW has tried to make the engine extremely linear in the way it delivers power. So it's very progressive and very linear in the way that the torque is distributed across the rev range. So there's no sense of it being a turbocharged motor anymore. There's no sense of it being a diesel motor anymore. So it's very refined, very grown up. But the flip side of that is that it doesn't really get under your skin when you're driving it. So it feels more like a luxury car, and especially since we've got this additional amount of space in the cabin. You've got a beautifully laid out interior. You've got everything that is really, really nice to the touch. It feels like a grown-up, mature luxury car rather than a bare bones sports sedan. Why that works in BMW's favor is because, well, most of you, that's what you want from your 3 Series. You want a car that's comfortable, that's quiet, that's luxurious, but it doesn't go back to the DNA that they've been trying to instill into the 7th generation of this car. And that's what brings me to the car I'm driving right now, because this is the 330i M Sport. It's got the M Sport suspension. It's more hunkered down. It has 255 horsepower. It's much more urgent in the way it delivers power. It's got more power, of course, but even the way the revs rise, the way this 8-speed ZF gearbox, which I think is the best gearbox in the world for a daily driver anyway, is more instant. It's more responsive. The revs build all the way to 6,500 RPM. This car feels sharper. It feels more involving. It's more fun to drive. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, because the 320D is the car that will sell the most in India. It works as more of a mature luxury machine. This one with the M Sport suspension and the 19-inch rims is going to be way too harsh and aggressive to use on the road every day. But the 330i in standard spec would, for me, be the ultimate compromise, because it's got just enough power to have a little bit of fun with. Although I have to say that the reason I love this chassis is because it's got 50-50 weight distribution, because it is completely balanced. You can throw the tail out at will and you can have a little bit of fun. But with this car, it has so much grip that to get it to be wayward, you have to be doing insane amounts of speed. So hopefully that's what we're going to do tomorrow at the Portimao circuit. And I'm waiting to get onto the track to see how this thing behaves when you're truly at the limit.
You gotta get into the groove.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we're heading out on the Portimao circuit in the M340i X-Drive. So this is the 3-liter turbocharged inline 6-cylinder engine. Does 0 to 100 in 4.4 seconds. That is proper sports car territory. And this is an incredible racetrack. It's like a roller coaster ride. Here's my problem. This car is so tremendously capable that for me to push it to its limits, I need to be doing insane speeds. What you can tell when pushing this chassis is the fact that it is lighter. It does feel very, very light on its feet. It feels very willing to change direction. It feels very, very willing to listen to your inputs. Complaint, if I have a small complaint, is that for me, inherently, the beauty of the 3 Series is a slow speed slide. Everything from the E30 to the E36 to the E46 to the E90 to the F30, the previous or the current generation, allows you at slow speed to just play with the chassis, just fiddle with it a little bit to make you feel a little bit alive when you're behind the wheel without having to kill yourself doing crazy speeds. This one now is so capable that to get it to slide, you have to be doing insane speeds. The the advantage here is that it is so capable that to get yourself out of shape, to get yourself into trouble is near impossible. Right, time's up for the track. Can't say I didn't enjoy it. Do I wish it were a little more playful? Yes, I do. Is it immensely just crazy capable? Yes, it is.